Honestly, this always wants to do that. Alright, so let's get started. So firstly, I thank you for life. Thank you for help. I thank you for the ability and the possibility to do what we endeavor to do. I pray that outside of this flame and that will across us as we blend down unto you. Which is very Alright guys, welcome. Let's have some fun. Feel like I want to do the Cherokee one more time. Okay, so the topic for today is the usual, the always spoken of, but I feel like not really listen to the virtuous woman, ATB, with courage started on me. Now the reality is not everybody's going to listen to this entire podcast, or me, yappy, but darn us all honestly. I have no time to learn this. I have no idea how long this is going to take. So welcome to the ride. Here are the footnotes. Who is Proverbial 31 woman? The summary? She's a virtuous woman. Gonna break that down. Who is a virtuous woman? Who or what is a virtuous woman? She is one who cares for her family, helps the needy, and speaks up with them. That's it. Those three things she encompasses, or it encompasses Bible Stephen. Zim, but we can start from scratch, right? So Proverbs 31 is pretty interesting to me, because I've always kind of wanted to figure out what she should look like. You know, everybody has their own dream person, dream one, what they should be like. But Proverbs 31 does, I believe, a really good job. And that's stuff that is just amazing of breaking down perfectly what she did today. We're gonna start from verse 4. And yeah, when we're talking about, we're gonna start from verse 4. I need to open my Bible. That is so wild. So you don't need to go. This is all the shit. What meant this? So for public person one, the aim is possible to go to my perspective of the situation, what I believe God will have try to put out to us. So it really does start from verse 1, and it is King Lemuel. Wandan Lemuel speaking. I can really his mother will speak to you, honest with you, will give us some insight. But we will see what it goes into. So I read on the top in verse 4, not to disregard the want to pay. It's more so that I find that there is a lot of knowledge that can be garnered from 4. But I don't come back to one. That's the good part. So, but verse 4, 8, and then it's in again, just a detail. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink. Prior to this in verse 3, Brother that said, "This not thy strength unto women, nor thy words, but that which destroy kings." And so verse 4 is not really speaking to the strong ones, yeah, destroy kings. Cool. So coming verse 4 really speaks to the fact that people of authority and the fact that they should not drink alcohol to the extent where it distorts their judgment. Because remember, the Bible does speak to moderation. There be moderation in all things. So it doesn't come off to me as a shock at drinking alcohol at all. But I know say back in the day, yeah man, them alcohol. It's not like Uncle Ray and him make you. Like we think Uncle Ray and him make bad. Back then, everything was Uncle Ray and him nephew and him son and them cooking. In a sense, it was really strong. So the point is, at verse 4, it really is his mother cautioning, urging him, "But you, my son, okay, man who is in authority, don't drink to the point where it affects your ability to make a decision. Because the reality is, he's a king. Kings rule. Distorted judgment for the one who should have vision for your kingdom, your future, results in a destroyed kingdom. There is no kingdom. So let's go to verse 48. Now, verse 48 really speaks to the destructive nature of alcohol or strong drinks and wine. How it distorts your judgment makes you forget the law. And the law is not just what governs the people, but it also is a reflection of the one who set it. So if the one who has set the law does not follow the law, is there really a law? And so how it distorts your judgment makes you forget the law and forget your current state, which usually results in us dealing with the dumplings. That's just the an. But also something to think about is that it impairs your judgment for perfect election. Remember, it's still in a Proverbs 30 on, right? I love how it ends there, because then we really step into now verse 10, which really speaks to the Christ of a virtuous woman. Something I was thinking about when I was meditating is the word price. You know, there's price and there's cost. But when I really look into price, the noun from Old English or Old French, my bad, because it was Middle English, but the noun from Old French was pris. It came from Latin pretium, which really meant value, reward. The verb though, avarian, which is a verb of the earlier price, which is Prse, you English person don't they? That also spoke to estimate the value of, and it was compared with praise. Mind you, guys, it's thinking from a deep thing. This is just literally Google, but it just shows the breakdown, which is origin Latin, pretium, Old French, fris, English, price, English again, prize, Middle English, price. So the price can result in the price. Fair money, I joke. Alright, so let's get into it. So the price of a virtuous woman. This person understand what virtuous mean. Virtuous implies practical competence. Practical, no matter, so the what I have found is over time, I'm going to talk about the virtuous woman, what we think about a soft, defenseless. But when you really look at the virtuous woman, the word virtuous in itself implies practical competence. And if you go further, virtue speaks to most capable, one with physical energy, strong, has valor, financial wealth, as well as virtue. What we speak about a lot is the virtue aspect. And I think because we go virtuous, we go, oh, virtue, a virtuous man should be, virtue. But we disregard most capable, we disregard strong, we disregard one of physical identity, named she's Barbara. Not Barbara in terms of personality bouncing off the wall, because there are different personalities. After a full other episode, shan't wait but in the delve into that part. But it really is that. And a virtuous woman is not your average woman. Like average girl. Not your reality. Because what it takes to be these things is not average. Let's just make another start there. Cool. Let's go to verse 11. And verse 11 it says, the heart of her foreman doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have known a spoil. Watch this. See verse 11? The first thing I've introduced you is peace. She sets her husband's heart at ease. first introduction of the human being virtuous woman is that of two stable plates. Which means for men, it means that she has created a space that I don't have to feel like I'm at the back in. Remember, this is from our perspective. And what the well, it's when I read the word, not really process it. Lean not until you understand. Ask that the true revelation. You know what I'm saying? Because last time to hear men talk about um how peaceful a woman is, and we think it is something that light, and we always think it not that fierce. And sadly, what has happened in society, 20% in society, is there have been more emphasis placed on the external features of a woman, to the extent that they have also, not all, and not just them, but also us, but they have also systematically become conditioned into focusing a lot on their external. Hair has to look great, face has to look great, body has to look great, and that's amazing, and it is important, but it is not what causes the man to be funny a husband. Niceness touches the eye, but peace is what captures the soul. What made them, you know? What could be a thing about it, right? The reason we see, and it's interesting growing up is as men, very into Albert, as men, what we saw was their particular, to call them, oh, that girl, like, that caliber of girl would be up to that person like that, who we didn't think as men really did have the ability to draw like that. But then the flip side was really there are women who, for our own standard, we don't believe. Our minute attack, we don't believe he should be with you. But why we choose her versus choosing her, society depiction of her should be. And it starts here. She set her first from part of peace is the first thing that's introduced. Get me? So, what is noted though that this is the only time outside of in reference to God that the Bible commands trust in anything. Don't believe me? Check it. Do a study. Come back and tell me I am willing to retract this thing. But it's the only time. But her husband can trust her because she is godly. Because she's what? Because she is godly. She just look good. She just smell good. She just can dance. She just can cook. But she is a godly woman in her character. Okay, get into the character. Give it some time, but we're gonna get into the character. Now, it also goes on to speak to spoil the lack of the vortex says, so that he shall have no need of born anything else. Anything else. Cool. Now, also I want us to look at, I'm going to, or that's the Elizabeth I'm saying. Probably should. But we're going to look at verse 12, right? Now, verse 12 it says, she will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. When I read this, I think of heart posture. I think heart posture and attitude giving birth to consistent good actions towards your husband. Heart posture is in the depths of whom she is, how she feels about you, that only she knows, who she commands, because heart posture coming down to who you are and how you decide to be. You can decide to not pay attention to your heart caution. What happens is the heart upon is just wicked and it does what it wants to do, or you command it to operate a particular way. This verse shows me command. So her heart caution will actually mean who she is, her character, and what she does nurture up into her mind. When our heart and mind have been aligned, and from that it births a particular behavior and action. And from that, the action that we birth, that we see, that we read of, is good and not evil all the days of her life. And in verse 13, where it says, she seeketh wool and flax and worketh willingly with her hands. Meant this. She willingly worked with her hands. She wasn't forced. She wasn't prepared. We did not have to sit down and have a conversation about it. Not saying that the body is gonna afterwards start like this, but what I am saying is this is the willingness as per a heart and what the mind to this. Everything is coming up. She never lazy. Like she really wasn't lazy or unwilling to create things with her hands. But that's because that's what it's saying. It's saying that creation would have been done. Now flax was used to, it was used to make linen. I don't think she has to know how to sew. Like no thinking about her person. I don't think it's necessarily like that she has to know how to sew. I think it is nice. Yo, made this. As a man, from my experience, obviously, I'm not old and weird, but I had the opportunity to watch someone sew a pants. I had put up on one, and I sat down and I watched them sew. This is not far from it. Bro, I kid you not. The amount of diligence and focus that it takes to do that, can't lazy. Because the skill that needed to weave the character, the time the character. No, I'm not joking. I kid you not, it's not a joke. But I don't think necessarily has to know how to sew. But what it does represent though, the act of sewing is the level of patience, willingness, and her being dutiful to work with her hand. Not a only that to put nails, not a like I can't. No, she was willing to put in that work. Patience, willingness, being dutiful. Verse 40. She's like the merchant ship. She bringeth her food from afar. In other words, she could afford imported goods. Merchant ship would this is not like you go down a Bashko. This is not like you go to First Mart. This is not like you go to Melamart. This is you legit ordering imported goods from all the way to Kenya. If you want a man sell come, do you know how many? Listen, the point is, she had the capability to afford to do that. You understand what I'm saying? She could afford it because it was expensive. It was. Because the note to this point is at this juncture, to this point where we're 14 verses in, we have not seen any mention of her husband provided any money. Yes, yeah, I know. I know we're not doing like that, but the reality is women who take the time to do it. I know your man no give you no money. And it is an excuse to say that men should not be financially at a place to support. No. But he's saying that just looking at you financially, she has the capability to manage this extent on her own. On her own. What's the point? So these are things that she's bringing to the relationship. All right. The podcast may end here because you have people walking out. When we hear the renowned question, what do you bring to the table? I always want to say it, I'm just going to say this now. The table is the relationship. Interesting, Kagiri. The table is the relationship. Not you, not me, not what? The relationship. You cannot be the table. I cannot be the table. The table is our relationship. Because we want to clear that up and be body so that we can be clear going forward. No man them. You feel the price? Come, boy. I'd like us to all be clear as men that we also pay the price for her as that price. What the price? She's not for real. She's not She-Hulk, but she's capable. What is she? Capable. Because a virtuous woman is capable, physical energy, strong, high value, and financially wealthy. These are the price, you know. This is what virtuous is. Virtuous. So it's not to say that, oh, she should just have all these things and blah, 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 blah. No, there's that price that we pay to have access to that. And we have to be willing to pay that price to experience that life. Be cautious. I'm not saying don't be an idiot and if somebody deals with you roughly, then all of a sudden, it's okay. It's worth the price. No, we're not saying that. But we're saying access always has a price. And to accept this level of a virtuous woman means you have to accept all of who she is, because to be virtuous comes with that. She's not going to be frail. And that's the reality. Now let's start going to in parts who a virtuous woman is. First, a virtuous woman cares for her family. Verse 15, that's where we are. She rises also while yet night, and giveth meat to her household and a portion to her maid. The other can't keep tell out like a babe. To sleep late at night then is nothing. Sorry, the sleep late in the morning thing is nothing. Yeah, it's not to say you'll never get to sleep late, but if it is that you take being a wife serious, then it requires that you rise early. She wakes early to provide the for family to be fed. This is interesting because meat literally means pray. And therefore it implies that she went and she got it. You know what that's interesting? Linus's aunt who prayed for the family. Yeah, that was the wild thing when upon thought as well. As well as it goes on to say, and a portion to her maidens. I really want to delve into her maidens part a little bit more, but to keep the focus on the Proverbs 31:1, it usually refer to an unmarried individual. I know there's significance to this. I want to go back there, but maybe like episode 3. But verse 16 to 17, though she considered a field and buy it with the fruit of her hand she planted a vineyard. She girded her loins with strength and strengthened her arms. 16 and 17. In 6b, we see where she saw a piece of a lie. In 60, we saw where she had vision. This is just her. This is her earning to her being able to provide for this capacity. She saw the land and she goes, that can become something. Not to buy it. But to be able to buy it means that she'd have to have the financial capability to do so. Ember, that is no a part of the definition, a part of what she brings to the table. Does it matter? So she saw it, she bought it. But the part that she bought it was the fruit of her hands. And it even standing out to me. I ain't gonna hold you. Because she then planted the land to create a vineyard, which is also a very profitable business, which tells me that she's entrepreneur minded. I want us to be able to see how the different things come out in Proverb 31 humanities. I know a lot of us are the 9 to 5s. I know me ask, are you saying that because I do a 9 to 5, I'm not a Proverb 31 woman? I am saying that based on what I get from this, I don't believe originally you would have even had a 9 to 5 in the beginning of time. Ignorantly. You couldn't do work. But then you be home. So that's not even an argument. So I do believe that you should be entrepreneur minded. As a wife, you should be entrepreneur minded. As a Proverbs 31 wife, you should be entrepreneur minded. Because here we also see that it is not an easy choice of crop. To do a vineyard, I know, growing a vineyard it's not a joking though. It's not. But it is very profitable. So I'm not trying to take a woman to walk through and do this when there's equipment. Like I don't expect her to walk and cool down the whole man. Now you have bundles of them there. And you have the relevant equipment that you can utilize. You can hire people to do the NTT. Right, those things can be done. But it is a sexy thought of the part of a woman is creating her own wealth and taking care of her family. The husband is not worthless, but if we focus on her and seeing it is a nice thought that she is so thoughtful and intentional of creating a particular life for her family to the extent that she will do what needs to be done so that they can experience what she wants for them to experience. And then 17, it really does speak to how she chose to be digitally strong. Not tough, strong. Because she cleared the stones, she cleared the vines, she digs a wine press, built a wine press into past in, and she built a tower to protect it. That's the process. Because if you go to Isaiah 5 verse 2, it explains who are pouring on our son. How it took years to clear the stone on the line and then fence it off. And after that, you planted the vines. It's not like she had a bulldozer. Say, yo, trade utilities, no. Years to clear the land to ensure. Listen, clear it, fence it, plant it up. This for me shows her diligence, determination, and physical strength as a good one. As a who? As a good one. So the soft life thing, soft life should not mean incapable wife. Go again. Soft life should not mean incapable wife. Unto verse 8. Right, please. She perceived that her merchandise is good. Her can good out, not at night, or good not out by night. Let's say it exactly what it stated. Now she knows, the Bible says perceive, which means she's aware of the value and the worth of her goods. Contextually, these could be her grades. In my opinion, so we're contextually expecting it to be grades. But she knows the value of her fruit. He can't take her to not be there. It then goes on to say she will have long life and prosper, which is my interpretation of her candle does not go out by night. That is what I get from it. Link me. Let me know what you get from me. Fast rapidly found. Let's check verse 19. Cool. She laid her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. Now, I realize that this speaks a lot about sewing. You know that? That the amount of sewing that takes place in this. The spindle and the distaff were used to make thread and twist it into yarn. And I can't help but think this is God's way of saying no matter how wealthy she is and how diligent and hard she works at her own business, she still honors the call to domesticated cars. Not that she's wealthy, she better about her own clothes. But the fact that she has a spimpy, has a distaff, it tells me, and I love that. I love that balance, meaning, sure, you have all these things, they define who you are, but they are a resource that can be poured now into your family. Love that. Next character, the virtuous woman helps the needy. That puts about verse 20. She stretched out her hand to the poor, yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. In essence, she does not scoff at the poor, but willingly gives to them. Verse 21. She's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household the total scarlet. So she can do, knowing that her household is not only taken care of. When I say she can do, meaning she can give to the needy without worry, because she knows that the household good. And what she provides to the household, I don't know, go think it close. It quite literally is the highest degree of material, the best quality, scarlet, which again speaks to her income capability. Let's make this clear. I am not in any shape or form trying to say men should not do anything, or men should just stay home and not be stewards of the house or priests of the house. Make a money either the priest, but they shouldn't be priests of the house. What I'm saying is, she also brings her work to the table, to the relationship, to the family. Verse 22. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is set and greatness. So she was clad in high-end clothing or material. It doesn't give the impression that she was materialistic. It doesn't. But Egyptian linen was very expensive, but it was comparative. I think she could afford it. She clearly wore it. Back to plates, but for comfort. It will consider. So in verse 20 though, I found this very interesting. It says her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. Her husband is known in the gate and he sitteth among the elders of the land. Her affluence, meaning her state of having great or a great deal money or wealth, has allowed for her husband to sit with the important and knowledgeable people at the gate. So these are the persons who had access to the going and the coming, which means they have access to information, is they have access to merchandise. And not even anybody can sit in the gate. It's about common as to. These are people of power and swing. But this also means that she respects different husband enough to allow for this introduction, conversation, and interaction, which conveys to me that confidence exists in her man irrespective of who those men were. Because it doesn't fit to the character of the men at the gate, because there's no guarantee that these men were men of God. They're men of business. But it gives me the impression, based on what he's written, that it doesn't matter who is at the gate. Because of what she has done, because of where she is in terms of her status in society, and then because of her confidence in her husband, man, him can pass through anytime. You imagine that? No, when someone tells husband now. It's thought. But it also says to me that he, the husband, would have been capable of having conversations that capacity. Because I also don't believe that they would just sit with anybody. But it was her affluence that opened that door. It's her affluence that granted him that access. Cool? Look on verse 24. It says, she maketh fine linen and selleth it, and delivereth burdens unto the merchants. Upon the interpretation of it is very interesting, because it states she sold everything from inner garment, meaning underwear, panties, bras, t-shirts, verena, garters, etc. that are put on first, right up to the outer blade and the sash. Man, you can do no sashes because you'd never had to wear, to be honest with you. But it did get me thinking, but is that why inevitably, or is that why initially women sold clothes through time, and is that why they are all more successful at it? Because if you to realize, majority of clothing we're seeing sold, women own stores, or if not the stores, it could jump on IG, like lingerie pages or clothing pages, barking pages, women, and it seemed very successful. And it just got me thinking, is this why it happens? As well as, is this a substantiating clause for cash spells care? Meaning, in order to serve her home as premiumly as she does and help the needy without worrying about taking care of her family, an income of high value, no priorities, now becomes or is a necessity. It's interesting how emphasis, or better yet, I just find it interesting how he places the prerequisite, who isn't God by the way, who he places the prerequisite needed to satisfy the need of the family and acquisition of the trait, mean who she is, for her to know what to do. But then it's interesting because he places the prerequisite needed to satisfy the need and acquisition of a trait for her to know what to do, which then reduces confusion and wastage. And in the end, the ability to measure her progress, because now she can track it. What categorization? Smart. And the way it is done, it gives her a nice balance of emotions with all that watch it, because running a business is just about fully feel it. So there has to be some logic to it. So she not run around singing, I'm independent, I'm independent. No, there's a balance between, yeah man, I know the value of my product. I know what my bank account look like. I know how wealthy I am. But I also understand emotionally my purpose as a wife. Verse 25. Strength and honor are her proving, and she shall rejoice in time to come. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. Another banner is strength is usually associated with youth, meti. Typically when you hear strength, you think of youth. But she's depicted as a mature woman of children and a husband. Hold on, yo, this is my line. This is me thinking. Hold on, no man. She is depicted, legit, as a mature woman with children and a husband. Whilst Anna is usually seen in the old or more mature. But Anna is also a byproduct of emotional intelligence. You want to admit that? Honor is a byproduct of emotional intelligence. You have to choose to honor someone. Honor not maintained by accident. You may do an action and then you can learn that that action is a way to honor someone. But to keep doing it requires you to keep choosing irrespective of how you feel. Because it also tells you that there's emotional intelligence. She's emotionally intelligent. So watch this. Okay. So with that, this is how my brain this is how my brain can take it. So she's either in her surface and she operate with the honor of an elder, or in her surface and then activities of which she was in her heyday or fine. Or pre is in her 20s. I'm the same. Listen, I'm the same. That's just my brain and how it processes it. Them, that's just my brain. That's all I'm saying. Literal.